Hello everyone! I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. I'm so grateful that you're listening, subscribing, and giving me all this love. I really appreciate it, especially the new subscribers. I welcome you. And in this one, I wanted to speak to you about a little bit more about our moral conscience. And I've done a video on this already, how our moral conscience is, or our moral perfectionism is what I call the video, is very high. It has a very high meter on it, or a very high level on it. So it's very hard for us. We make it hard for ourselves as INFJs, I really believe. A lot of the problems that we've created are not actually problems, but it's created because of our perfectionist nature. And if we could just kind of relax a little bit, not in terms of reduce our intensity, but just relax our rules in our head, because they're not rules anywhere else. They're just rules that you've created in your own head and you follow to a T, but they're not actually really rules that you have to follow all the time. And so, this is something I've spoken about as well. Sometimes I'll make up a random rule in my head and I'll follow it for months on end. And then, I'll kind of look at the way I'm doing things and I'll realize, why am I following this rule? Why did I set up this rule? And I'll realize that I'm doing things in a very unhealthy way because of the rule that I've set up in my head. Not a real rule, but just a rule I've set up for myself. And it's actually not even a good rule, because it's a rule that's causing me to be unhealthy, because I'm forcing myself to do things in a way that should not be done that way, or don't always need to be done that way. And so we can be a little bit rigid in this scenario, and we can be a little bit inflexible. Because what is something that I've constantly been talking to you about is balance. Constantly rebalance yourself. Because one rule that you created once, a month, 2 months, a year, 10 years ago, is not probably valid right now. You have to constantly be re-evaluating these rules and be like, okay, does it still work right now in this moment in time where I am right now, how I am right now, right? I can give you a quick example of these random rules that I've created in my head. One of the rules I created in my head, and this is a terrible rule and I've stopped doing this, but was, if I don't like a person when I first meet them, I'm never going to meet them again and I'm never going to be friends with them. Very strict rule, very rigid, and I did this all the time. I'd meet a person, I'd feel something, I don't know about it. I would just completely cut it off, right? I realize a lot of times what's going on in that first moment is that there's random emotions coming up, or there's trauma coming up for me from the past, or there's just something that is unconscious happening, bubbling up under the surface, that's causing me to feel that this person's not right in some way. And if I just give them a little bit of a chance, it doesn't have to be a huge chance, just a little bit of a chance, and I just spend a little bit of time with them, a couple of times down the road, whatever it might be, I notice that a lot of times I will switch and I'll realize, oh, actually this person's not that bad. And I was just judging them harshly because of this rule that I have in my head, or because of this past experience I had in my life. And actually this person's actually really nice and I'd like to be friends with them. Very simple example, but it held me back a lot, because I could have been friends with a lot of different people that I judged harshly right away, and I did not alter my view of them when I noticed that they were not so, in the future. And this is just one example of a random rule I've made up in my head. I've made so many other random rules in my head. I still probably have 100 in my head right now that I'm using, that I'm like, this is not right. This is not how I should be living my life. The problem obviously is that, we want things to make sense, and we use these rules to make life make sense, the world make sense, people make sense. Because all of it doesn't make sense to us. All of us, we're looking at it and we're like, it doesn't make any sense. Why does this world work this way? So we make up these rules to help us navigate this world. It makes sense to us. As I said, the rule might have worked when you were 10 years old, but it doesn't work anymore. Or it might have worked even a week ago, but the world it changes so rapidly, and it's so permissible and volatile, that the rule that you made up even a week ago might not be valid anymore. And you're just restricting yourself and creating a problem for yourself because of this random rule. I'll give you another example of a random rule I made. I just thought about it. I had this rule in my head that if I don't actually read a physical book, this book actually, by the way, is really good, Bark Skins, but if I don't read a physical book for 10 minutes a day, it's not actually reading. So I was listening to audiobooks constantly or watching YouTube videos on content that I was consuming. But because I wasn't reading a physical book, I said to myself, I'm not reading at all. And this is a rule that I made up in my head. When I realized that I was reading a lot because I was listening to audiobooks, it's the same thing. I know it's not reading a book, but it's reading a book in a different format. Then I realized that I was pushing myself down or putting myself down, saying, oh, you don't read anything, this is one of your favorite things to do, but you don't do it. What's wrong with you? I do read. It's just I wasn't reading books. Yes, physical books are great, but it's very hard to find books in Bali. They're very expensive, and also the bookstores are not that great. If I was in the UK, it'd be really easy to find used books for cheap, or Canada. But, here it's very hard, so I do have to kind of compensate. But again, this rule was in my head, and I was like, this is a rule, I'm going to follow it to a T. There's nothing around it. This is the way it is. I'm not going to do it. Very dictatorial, very tyrant-like, and not flexible at all. Now, I'm not saying that we have to be flexible all the time with everything, and we should never have any rules, and we should never be rigid. In certain ways, if someone's treating you terribly, yes, be rigid and, have a rule that if someone treats me like this or that, I'm going to cut them off, or I'm going to door slam or whatever. I'm not saying never, but a lot of times we have too many random rules that are restricting us, holding us back, and making us feel like we're not living our life to the fullest, like we're kind of bobbing on the surface of life, right? And so I just wanted to kind of do this video because I wanted to explain to you that, you might want to reevaluate some of the things you're doing in life based on the rules that you created in your life, because it is not a healthy way to live, right? And once you evaluate it, you might realize it's actually outdated, and you don't need to function by that rule anymore. You're safe, you're secure, you don't live with your family that you had to create this rule for, so you don't have to behave like that anymore. Or, you don't live with that partner that you created this rule for, and so you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to restrict yourself in that manner. Then another thing that I do want to speak about in terms of moral perfectionism or moral conscience is that because of it, we do have a hard time walking away from things when we know someone's suffering. And this is something that's very difficult for us because we have a savior complex. And I've done many videos on this, and we do believe that we need to save the world. And no one else is going to do it. I'm the only one. And you're not the only one. There's lots of other people probably taking care of things. And if you are not feeling your best, don't take care of someone else. It's not the right time to do it. And I'm bringing this up because, there's a lot of dogs in Bali that need help. They have mange, or they're, skin diseases, or they're just so skinny, or there are lots of puppies that are just dumped because people don't have money to take care of them. It's not a developed country, of course. They have problems with that. It's fine. This is the way it is. But I'd always feel bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do things, but I can't take care of all the dogs that I pass by. I try to take care of feed at least one dog a day. That's my thing that I've kind of made up for myself. I can't take care of all of them, but I'll feed at least one puppy or one dog or one cat, kitten, something a day, right? And so I do that. That's the level that I can work with. I don't have an organization behind me. I can't do all that. I do send pictures of dogs that I think need help to organizations that can help potentially. But then, I feel like, oh my gosh, I can't walk away. I feel terrible. I put myself down. I'm like, oh, I'm a terrible person. I don't help the dogs that I see. He needs help or she needs help. And I'm just walking away. So this is something that is really terrible for our mental health because we push ourselves down. We put ourselves down. We make ourselves feel bad. So what I've started doing is that, I've started for this particular scenario. And that's, you'll have to find a solution for yourself in that scenario that you're in. But I joined up a bunch of Bali pet crusader style communities on Facebook. And whenever I feel like, I'm the only one and there's no one else taking care of dogs, I'll just go on the community, on the Facebook group, and I'll see hundreds of people, dozens of people, every single day going around and taking care of dogs, feeding dogs, putting dogs into shelters, giving them medicine. And all of this just makes me realize more and more how many kind people there are on the planet, how many other people are taking care of these beautiful dogs, and I'm not the only one. And if I can't do it on my own, there is someone else that will take care of them. And also, if I can send it to an organization, a picture or something, that maybe they can help them, and I can just do my level best, and that's all I can do. And then they will do their level best, and all of us will just do our level best, and that's it, right? There's no need to put ourselves down or beat ourselves up or call ourselves names, or call ourselves like lazy, or you're mean, or you're cruel, or things like that. There's no need to do that, because you're doing the best you can. And this is something that I'm constantly telling myself. You're doing the best you can. You're feeding the dog that needs feeding. You gave them food one day. It's good. You're giving medicine to the things that, if you have time, you're giving medicine to the dogs that need it. You're doing the best you can, and everyone else is as well. So that's all you can do. So this is a refrain that I use constantly when I feel this moral perfectionism, moral conscience, like beating my head over my or like slapping me in the face and saying, how dare you, you're a terrible person. I'm always saying to myself, you're doing the best you can, you're doing the best you can, you're doing the best you can. And so I use this as a mantra to take care of myself and not to beat myself up too much. Maybe that'll help you as well. All in all, I hope this video is helpful. There's a lot of different things that we do morally, or like that we beat ourselves over, and I really want to stop doing this to ourselves. It's not a good way to live life. It's not the way we want to do things anymore. If you have questions about this, let me know in the comments below. Or if you have stories you want to share of your own experience with moral perfectionism, or your moral conscience, let me know as well in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.